What if I told you that Ferrari is about to change everything with an improvement that you cannot see, but that it can be the key to defeating McLaren and Red Bull? Stay, because this hidden detail of the SF-25 could be the beginning of a new era for the Scuderia. These mistakes, however, were not casual. They reflected a worrying pattern that had been dragging from the pre-season. The car had a chronic structural problem in the gearbox, directly affecting the ability to maintain the optimal march height. This not only made traction and stability in curves difficult, but also exposed to the car a disproportionate tire wear. In a sport where the slightest technical detail can be the difference between victory and disaster, this failure was unacceptable. In addition, in the race the car was particularly sensitive to lateral wind and load transitions between rapid and intense braking curves, something that in the mixed layout of Melbourne was devastating. The general sensation was that the SF-25 was poorly balanced, with a nervous front axle and a little predictable rear. The engineers struggled to find a configuration that gave confidence to the pilots without compromising the career rhythm. The situation worsened with the additional complexity of thermal management. The power unit showed signs of overheating in long batches, especially when it was required in sections of prolonged acceleration. The SF-25 seemed to punish its excess tires, losing traction and effectiveness very soon in each stint. All this happened while McLaren and Red Bull were already beginning to consolidate their base configurations with much more solid results. For Hamilton, the blow was double. In addition to dealing with a car that did not respond as expected, I had to adapt to a completely new environment. Ferrari not only operates with a culture other than that of Mercedes, it also faces intense media pressure, with each error amplified by general expectation. The British tried to adapt his driving style, adopting elements of the Leclerc approach to improve his curve speed, but the process was slower than anticipated. The lack of synergy between pilot and machine became evident in radio communication, decision-making, and difficulty finding effective adjustments during race weekends. The frustration was tangible. Ferrari was again in an awkward position, with a promising car in theory, but unable to translate their qualities into consistent results. It was not enough with the talent of its pilots or with Maranello's resources. Something else was needed, a deep transformation. And it is precisely in this adverse context that the team decided to take a bold step. Redesign the SF-25 from within, not with visible changes, but with an internal revolution that, if it worked, could completely rewrite the narrative of its season. The modifications that Ferrari has introduced in the SF-25 before the Canada Grand Prix represent, without exaggeration, a philosophical transformation of the technical approach of the team. And the most intriguing is that most of these changes are invisible to the human eye. While other teams concentrate their updates in external aerodynamic or mechanical components, Ferrari has opted for a silent but deeply disruptive path. Redesign the internal systems of the car, betting on a smarter and more personalized electronic integration than ever. In the heart of this revolution is a new cooling system, which, although it does not attract attention in the renders or on television shots, is crucial for the optimal operation of the car in a layout like Canada's. The Gilles-Villeneuve circuit requires much more than gross power. It forces precise thermal management due to its long straight ones interrupted by sullen girls and branches. Here, any overheating in the power unit can be lethal for car reliability. Ferrari has understood this better than ever, and has developed a specific cooling circuit, capable of anticipating thermal peaks instead of reacting to them. The system not only cools the engine, but does it dynamically, prioritizing critical areas based on real-time telemetry. But the change does not stop there. One of the most conflicting points of the start of the season was the management of the hybrid system, particularly the MGUK, responsible for the recovery and delivery of kinetic energy. In the first races, Hamilton made it clear that the car was not delivering the electrical power efficiently when leaving slow curves, a key aspect in traction circuits such as Montreal. Ferrari has rewritten the operational logic of the MGUK based on the acceleration curves preferred by Hamilton, which allows a much more organic energy release. The system now analyzes the pilot's patterns and adapts its response almost instantly, providing that electric thrust just when the rear wheels can endure it without losing adherence. In addition, it has worked meticulously in tire management. Ferrari has incorporated thermal prediction algorithms that adjust the pressure and temperature of the compounds depending on the projected race rhythm, anticipating wear and helping to keep the tires in their optimal window for longer. This technology was inspired by models developed by tire manufacturers for wind tunnel simulations, but Ferrari has managed to integrate it in real time into the electronic brain of the car. This means that the decisions about how much pushing in each sector or when to modify the strategy are no longer taken only by the track engineer, but by the car itself as a function of variables that fit each return. The truly revolutionary is that these improvements did not imply large external redesign. There are no new spoilers or radical pontoons or reconfigured bodies. The change has been invisible but structural. Ferrari is rewriting the rules of how a Formula One car should be improved and is doing it in silence. This is not just engineering, it is the sign of a team that begins to think like the 21st century champions. A team that, finally, is understanding that to compete with McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull, it is not enough to be fast. You have to be intelligent. And that intelligence now is hidden under the skin of the SF-25. The big question that flies over this Ferrari's technical effort is simple but deep. Will it be enough? Because although the invisible modifications of the SF-25 have generated a justified wave of enthusiasm within the team and among fans, Formula One does not forgive. And the true validation of any technical advance only occurs under the lights of a traffic light that goes out and the 300 kilometers of career that follow it. The new solutions in thermal management, the hybrid system, and the electronic interface with the pilot undoubtedly represent an evolutionary leap. But the SF-25 continues to carry structural scars that, for more technology that is implemented, cannot disappear overnight. The problem in the gearbox, for example, has been persistent. It affects the control of the car height and, therefore, conditions general aerodynamic efficiency. A car that cannot maintain a constant march height compromises its airflow, its braking stability, and its ability to generate curve load. Ferrari has mitigated the symptoms, but the root of the problem continues latent. In addition, in the tactical, Ferrari has proven to be vulnerable. In Australia and China, decisions such as extending a tire stint or delaying the moment of change under variable track conditions were expensive. And although electronic improvements promise to compensate some of those errors with better data reading and real-time simulations, it is still about to be seen if the team on the track can execute each strategy with surgical precision. In terms of development, there is also the question of time. Ferrari has bet on these internal improvements just before Canada, but in the meantime, his rivals have not been waiting. McLaren, for example, leads the Builders' Championship and has demonstrated not only mechanical reliability, but a brutal strategic efficiency. His car is consisting of almost all track conditions, and both Norris and Piastri are extracting their full potential from the first race. Even Red Bull, despite his internal turbulence and pilot changes, has achieved victories thanks to the absolute performance of Verstappen. And Mercedes, with a W15 that continues to find a race after a race, is another latent threat. So for Ferrari, the margin of error is practically null. In Canada, it is not just about validating an improvement, it's about staying in the fight. If the SF-25 manages to translate all this new potential in constant rhythm, reliability, and good strategic management, then we could be facing the start of a new chapter. But if these improvements are not reflected in tangible results, then this technological revolution will go to the archive of good executed ideas, a place where Ferrari has been too many times in recent years. And then there is the human factor. The synergy between Hamilton and the team is still young. Although the 7-time champion has demonstrated an admirable adaptation capacity, including adjustments to its constant technical driving and feedback style, we cannot forget that modern Formula One is a chemistry sport as much as technical. The understanding between pilot, engineer, and car must be almost telepathic. And that connection, however powerful technology is, only refines over time. Hamilton has signed his intention to thoroughly commit to this project, but he is also aware that he needs results soon if he wants to turn Ferrari into his final legacy. So can this Ferrari redefine change the destination of the team? The answer is as close as the Canada Grand Prix is. If the SF-25 manages to perform as its internal data promise, if Hamilton can exploit that new balance between hybrid power, thermal precision, and dynamic control, and if Ferrari on the wall manages to fail at the key moment, then yes, this may be the spark that marks the rebirth of the Scuderia. Not as an act of nostalgia, but as a real threat to current titans. And if not, it will be a bitter confirmation that, in modern F1, it is not enough to have good ideas. You have to know how to turn them into points. Now that you know all the details behind the invisible improvements of Ferrari SF-25, the question that remains to answer is no longer technical. It is personal. Do you really think this is enough to change Ferrari's fate? Because we are facing one of those moments hinge in the history of Formula One. An instant where everything could turn for good. Or collapse under its own weight. The Canada Grand Prix will not just one more race. It will be a real-time evaluation of silent work in Maranello. All the effort of dozens of engineers who comforted the digital heart of the car. All the sacrifice of pilots who adapted to a temperamental car, hoping that he finally respond. All the patience of a hobby that has seen breeding promises for years. Everything, absolutely everything, is put into play in that route of long lines, treacherous curves and walls that do not forgive mistakes. Ferrari is taking a step towards a more modern, more adaptive F1, more centered on the pilot and real-time data. But this step has to take results now. It is not enough that the car is smarter. It has to be faster. It is not enough for Hamilton to feel more comfortable. You have to be in front. Because in this era, the second places do not build legends. And Ferrari cannot afford another season with wasted potential. So now it's your turn. What do you think of this new Ferrari approach? Is it the right way to return to the top, or is it another patch solution in a story that we have seen before? Do you think Hamilton can lead this transformation, or that he will face the same frustrations as other champions before him in Maranello? Leave it in the comments.